Carol, I believe we're one short of a quorum, so we think we have other members coming, so we're going to wait just a moment. Carol, I believe we have a quorum now. Do you agree? With the quorum being present, we're going to call the meeting to order of the December meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board. The first item to be considered on our agenda is item 2, the approval of minutes. You've been furnished with copies of the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move approval.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting of November the 19th. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3 on our agenda is the revenue and expenditure report. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet in its usual form the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report for the period ending November 30th, 2015. On the revenue side for the month, we have $8,757,563. For the fiscal year, we have $46,532,938. The total program revenue of $574,857,509. On the expenditure side, for the month, we have $5,323,703. The fiscal year, we have $25,093,618, and total expenditures of $140,057,922. I might point out that the major expenditures for the month in the Fairgrounds is the construction of the Expo building, and then in the river is the construction of the whitewater facility. Then you also have the budget and obligations report for the period ending December 1st, 2015. Be glad to answer any questions you might have on either of those.
Michael Adams, anything you want to tell us about this? Anyone else? Shall we receive the report? Been moved and seconded that we receive the revenue and expenditure report as presented. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is received. Item 4, David.
Item 4 is presentation on MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2 New Expo Building, Project M3-F002. Pardon me. In an effort to keep you updated as to what's going on for various construction projects, we have Wes Brannon here today from FSB, and we also have Mike Mize who will address some issues about schedule. So I'd like to invite Wes up to talk to you about the Expo Building.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Citizens of the Advisory Board members, on behalf of FSB, thank you for having me today to present to you last month through today's construction updates. First slide is one that we've seen previously. It kind of gives an overall site plan and the seating of the Expo building. The second slide references areas that we use often, not only for understanding in general terms, but also through construction details. I would like to point out that as we start here on the east around the bounding perimeters of areas north of what we call grid line 6, as of today, the metal wall panels are in place, and as well as the roof panels for the small areas on the north, which would be the Great Hall, kitchen, and some of the concession areas. And the main roofing you'll see a little bit later in a slide should complete on the north by the end of the week for the main Expo Hall, and then the north high wall of the Expo wall is complete to date, which will lack a little bit of the south roof and the west elevation, and we would have then pretty much enclosure to the entire building. This was an aerial view taken mid to late October. This is aerial view that was taken the same period of time for last month of November. But again, this on the north will complete, and then as you can see, this is all open in November. They have excelled through that area with roof panels and wall panels. This is a view taken from the southeast looking to the northwest. You can see that the cladding and veneer is well on its way, as well as the high structural steel framing that will receive translucent panels and interior aluminum framing and entrance systems. This is the current view, and you can see the end panel now over here in the far southwest corner is complete as we speak. This is a view looking to the west from the east. This is a view looking to the southwest from the east. And again, you can't really see it in the shades of the photo, but this roof panels in this area over the kitchen and concession areas is complete as we speak. This is an on view looking what we call the west elevation, looking directly to the east. And this would be more current for November of the same elevation. This is bringing us around as we look kind of at the west elevation and south elevation. And that was for the month of October. This is current through November. And again, this is the area I spoke of previously that is complete now, and we really just lack the west elevation and a few bays here on the north. This is kind of a main entrance view of the Area C, looking into that lifts in the way, or we'd be looking into the Great Hall Expo. This is actually inside of the Expo Hall looking east. Those are the bay doors we talked about a couple of weeks ago as it relates to scale. This is a view looking west right after the rains over the Thanksgiving holiday. We have 5 requests for change orders from the general contractor. The last 2 are specific to weather days, 1 for October and 4 for the month of November. The additional landscaping and irrigation, additional colored concrete mock-up, and sheathing revisions. These are the mathematical figures for original construction contract amount with the, with the change order request value at $56,114. These are some additional numbers for some additional awards pertaining to the entire complex or facility of the Expo Center. Again, change order number 12 requested 5 calendar days, approved 5 calendar days. The request was for more than that through dialogue and many meetings we had with the general contractor. It was confirmed at 5 days. Any questions?
How does this square with our original budget with all these change orders? Where do you see us standing now?
I would really defer that to David.
As as we talk about, we've had 12 change orders. Some of them are for days, but some of them are for money. And are we still within our budget is what I'm asking you.
Yes, sir. We're within our budget. We're at the entire change order takes us to 3.75%.
Of the 10%.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael? Michael, as you come up to tell us about this, would you like to take this time to introduce the new member of your team?
Good morning, everyone. First thing I'll do is introduce to you Leslie Tabor, who's soon to be the newest employee at ADG. She hasn't started with us yet, but she was kind enough to come and get acquainted with the advisory board and start to get acquainted with the MAPS process. She will be involved in the MAPS projects and some other projects at ADG, and I'm just delighted to have her here. I'm going to give you a presentation, an oral presentation that is very similar to the one that I gave to the Fair Subcommittee this past Tuesday regarding an issue that may cause some delays in the completion of the Expo building. We've been advising the Fair Subcommittee that there have been some issues with the paint on the structural steel on that project. And I'll go back to the beginning. The original specification required that the paint be applied in the shop. It was a 3-coat process, and part of the reasons to do that was to try to help assure the quality and overall appearance of the paint as a finished product inside the building, because this paint is exposed, it's part of the finished building. The first structural steel members arrived on the project on or about June 2nd, I believe. It was within 24 hours that we discovered that there were some issues with the paint. At the time, we thought that some of those issues, and the contractor in particular thought that those issues were not wholesale issues, but were issues that could be resolved by doing spot stripping and painting as the structural steel was being erected and after. They made the decision at that point to start erecting the steel. As more and more steel came in and was being erected, it became clear that the problem was larger than was originally intended. A testing lab was brought in. The testing lab determined that effectively all of the paint coating on the structural steel was defective and needed to be removed and replaced. We have been in the process of defining how to remove the paint coating while the steel's in place and then repaint it in a way that's satisfactory to the fair and also meets the basic requirements of FSB's original specification. That process is ongoing. The paint that is being used is a 1-coat application. FSB has reviewed that material. It is an acceptable material. It has some characteristics that are different than the original paint, but overall it is an acceptable material. That process, as I said, is ongoing. The original estimates for how long that process would take were underestimated. That process is taking longer than anyone anticipated. The MAPS office, FSB, and ADG are all working with Atlas and with their subcontractor to try and expedite the process. The contractor who is doing the paint removal and additional paint coating and new paint coating has added crews to the project to try to expedite that project. The most recent completion date that you have seen is the contractual completion date of June 2nd. We've had weekly meetings and sometimes more frequent meetings with the contractor and with the subcontractor. And based on the progress that we've seen and the scheduling that's been modified based on that progress, it could be September before that building is complete. So that's my report.
Any questions for Mike? Bob, any comments from the subcommittee?
Well, as Mike said, we got this report when subcommittee met on Tuesday. We talked about it for quite a while. It came as a bit of a surprise to the subcommittee that this has happened, but I think we were satisfied that the remediation being done is the best alternative. I think Mike had even indicated that paint being applied now may in some respects be a better quality than originally done. And as I understood it, the steel contractor who was to paint the steel in the shop was to apply 3 coats. First coat was not allowed properly to dry before the additional coats were put on, and that's what's caused the problem now. That subcontractor who was supplying the steel and was to do the painting is doing the remediation on its own dime. There's no cost to MAPS to do this. It can be a big hit. I don't know that we know a number. I don't know that we care what that number is as far as the cost to subcontractor, but it's undertaking remediation at its own expense. So it's not going to impact the budget in any way to have to do this. The big problem is, as I see it, twofold. One would be whether there are any areas of the building, because the steel had been erected, that we can't get to properly apply paint. And I think Mike satisfied us yesterday that there are Tuesday that's not a significant issue.
Well, it's not a significant issue, but it is an observation that is correct. There will be some areas that cannot be stripped and repainted.
And I think the only concern the subcommittee had in that respect, whether long-term, 15, 20, 30 years from now, would that pose any problem? Our assumption, our belief is that no, long-term, that's not going to, even though there may be some areas, I suspect some of the areas the steel's buried in concrete, probably not going to make a difference whether it's painted or not. There are going to be some other areas that may be exposed. We may have to look at 10 or 15 years down the line, but that undo the building. We can't take it down and repaint it, so we're going to do the best we can with what we have. The other concern that we had is timing on it, because it is, with these delays, very likely going to bump up against the state. And Tim O'Toole, the state fair president, member of our subcommittee, said that they are not leasing a show space in this building for the state fair in 2016. They're going to have to other buildings, other space, because they can't be assured that they can make that space available. So the fair may lose the revenue from the use of the Expo building next year, although from the beginning we had anticipated that building available state fair in 2016. Again, I don't believe that's a MAPS-related issue. That's revenue that the state fair would generate by use of the building, but it's unfortunate. The timing may have that impact on the state.
Any other questions?
Mike, will there be any financial remuneration given this consideration, that particularly in those areas that they can't go back and repair? Will there be any penalties? Let it go? Or what?
Those concerns have been expressed to the contractor. At this point, there haven't been any specific negotiations with respect to that. The contract does call for liquidated damages, and the contractor is very, very much aware of that as well. For the liquidated damages are for delays, but that's all part of the conversation that will happen later.
Yeah, Michael, I'd add that I think to the extent there are any legal issues that arise, staff and counsel for the city would be the first ones to address that issue internally, and then with the contractor and subcontractor. And I suppose if at some point it came to a place where we want to pursue legal action, that could be taken up here in executive session, dealt with appropriately at that time.
Other questions? Michael, thank you for the report. And Wes, thank you as well. That brings us then to the item 5, which is the resolution that was included in the presentation, David.
Yes, sir. Item 5 is recommend resolution approving change order number 12 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2 New Expo Building, increase of $56,100.14, project M3-F002. And as I stated, if this change order is approved, we will be at 3.75% in change orders. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any more.
Any other? Does this come with the recommendation of the subcommittee, Bob?
It does. It was considered and unanimously recommended by the subcommittee.
David, when you talk about 3.75%, is that effectively 3.75% of the 10% contingency? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
We've eaten into that by
Yes, sir.
37.5% of there.
That's right.
All right. Shall we adopt a resolution approving this change order? Been moved and seconded that we approve the change order number 12 as described in item 5 in your agenda. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution approving final plans and specifications to be advertised for bids for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Expo Building Food Service Equipment, Project M3-F002A. This is just what it says. It's the food service equipment for the Expo building. It will be bid as a construction project because it also includes installation and various things that are required for that. So it will be advertised, and then we will receive bids in the usual manner. And this is within the budget that was previously set with the Fairgrounds. We stay within budget, and it comes recommended from the subcommittee.
Any questions for David or Bob? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for the final plans and specifications for this food services equipment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted and approved. David, item 7.
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 2 to the contract for engineering services with Triad Design Group Incorporated for MAPS 3 Trails Phase 1 West River Trail Connection, increase of $3,750, project M3-T001A. This is for additional engineering services. When we were doing the land acquisition for the West River Trail, there was a parcel of land that we had to do additional land title and survey work on, and they've asked for additional compensation, and we believe this is justified. And while the Trails and Sidewalks didn't have a quorum, it did come recommended from those members that were present.
Sue, any comment?
No. Move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution for this additional or this expenditure. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The matter is approved. Item 8, David.
Item 8 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 1 to the contract for engineering services with MacArthur Associated Consultants, LLC for MAPS 3 Sidewalks Phase 3 improvements, increase of $115,000, project M3-W003. Similarly, this is a project that is still in design and that we need to acquire right-of-way for sidewalk project. At the time when we negotiated the contract, we did not know how many parcels would be needed and weren't able to quantify that. So we're coming back with an amendment so that they can it requires the drawings and legal descriptions and contact with the property owners on this. And again, no quorum, but came recommended from those present at the subcommittee.
Any questions for David on this sidewalks project? Sue, any comment from you?
No. Just move approval.
Been moved that we approve it. Been seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 9 is new business. Any member of the subcommittee, of the Citizens Advisory Board have any new business? We'll talk about Christmas later, but any other new business? All right. That brings us then to, David, did you have any new business you wanted us to consider? No, sir. That brings us then to the item 10, which is the Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. Nathaniel, I'll start by asking you, anything you want to talk to us about?
Nope.
Anything going on in your committee, Nathaniel?
So we had a big meeting yesterday. The major item was realignment to incorporate the new convention center location better. So a major priority is to make sure the convention center has a more direct interaction with the streetcar route. So we were presented with 15 alternatives, different ways to accomplish that. We were able to strike about 10 or 11 of them that had a fatal flaw that we considered to be they maybe could get you from Bricktown to the convention center, but not the other way around. You'd have to go through Midtown to go back. And so, as we look at different routes and how different people might be using it, you have to be able to go there and back, wherever the there and back is, without having to go through the whole system. So we've narrowed it down to, I think, about 4 or 5 The two trends that have emerged is there's one they're calling, that our consultants are calling just a reroute, where you literally just stretch the southern part of the route maybe to the new boulevard, is one version. And then there's also an idea that's emerging that's having an additional Bricktown loop. So you'd actually have, think of other transit systems that have a red line and a blue line, So you'd have a Bricktown loop that maybe extends either as it does currently down Hudson, or maybe it'll instead do Robinson, and then have a loop along Reno and Sheridan to go through Bricktown. So there's a couple of versions of that, and a couple of versions of the reroute that we've recommended or gave feedback back to Jacobs, saying that we want to pursue those ideas, leaving the others behind. And so the next step for January will be to have a more detailed analysis indicating feasibility, any fatal flaws, and a better idea of the incremental cost, any incremental time to achieve that. And then, of course, something that we've really stressed as a subcommittee is headway, so the time you have to wait between vehicles. Other experiences in the U.S. are showing that if you have much more than 10 minutes wait, then the system is used much, much less. So we're trying to really stick to the 10-minute headway optimum number. So as we stretch south or as we add another line, we're being told that we'll have to add another car as part of this, no matter what we choose. All the options include one more car. Now, our vehicle contract already enables that. It's already part of the contract, but we'll have to actually execute that option. So that's something that we're having to look at as well. Any questions on that before I go to the other item, which is smaller, but I want to make sure there's any feedback on this one before I move on.
Well, Sue and I want to thank you for accommodating the new location of the convention center. Appreciate the extra work.
Of course. And then the other item that was very important to us as a subcommittee was reviewing traffic signals and how that would affect headway as well. And we were assured that with existing technology that has already been implemented by Public Works, Eric Winger has given a presentation showing that we'll be able to use some of the technologies that they're already incorporating into the traffic lights that will be able to essentially optimize that 10-minute headway without having to just change the whole system or have a special system just for the streetcar. And the takeaway that I had was basically every intersection is going to be different. It's not going to be one technology. Sometimes it's just paint. Sometimes it's a dedicated right turn that enables optimum travel time for the streetcar. So we were satisfied with that, and so no action or no recommendation from that. So with that, that's my report. Thank you.
Any other questions for Nathaniel? Any other subcommittee want to report on anything or their meeting? All right. Then let's move to item 11 in the agenda, informational items. David?
Mr. Chairman, there's two items under the informational items category, and they are properties that are purchased for the convention center. And they've already gone to council.
Any questions about either of those informational items? I guess those would be encouraging items to us, wouldn't it? That
Yes, sir.
we were able to acquire property for the convention center site. Any questions about either of those? All right. That brings us to item 12 on the agenda. David, anything that we haven't heard so far that you want us to know about?
Yes, sir. I'd like to give you just a quick update on everything. From the River Subcommittee, the Whitewater facility is still under construction and going well. We've had very favorable weather for this time of year. Senior Wellness, we have Wellness Center number 1 under construction, and Wellness Center 2 design is nearing completion. Then Convention Center, as we just mentioned, site acquisition is underway and going well, and design is also underway. We saw an update on the Expo building, so Expo building construction is underway. For the park, we have design of the upper park, which continues. We have utility relocation, which has just begun. If you go down there, you'll see that some of the streets have been closed now, and some of them are being flopped back and forth depending on what work is being done. So the landscape down there is going to change rapidly here very soon, if not already. Then also the relocation of private utilities has begun down there also, and preliminary design of the lower park is also underway. You heard from Nathaniel about the streetcar. Preliminary design is complete. Negotiations for the streetcars continue with Brookville, and the mainline construction and the maintenance facility are in design. Trails and Sidewalks has a lot going on. Phase 2 of the trails, which is the I-44 corridor, is in design and or acquiring right-of-way. Phase 3 trails, which is the loop around Draper, has begun. And the Phase 2 projects 1 and 2 sidewalks is in construction. Phase 3 projects 1 and 2 are in design. And Phase 4 sidewalks are also in design. And as we mentioned, Trails and Sidewalks, I'd like to take a minute here and show you a video that we were able to make. I asked our consultant to do a flyover of the trail, kind of as a record, and that evolved with their creativity, with ADG and the Gooden Group. Their creativity gave this video that I'd like to show you right now, that is the West River Trail. So we're very proud of the West River Trail and how it turned out. We'll be putting it out there. It'll probably be on YouTube, and we'll have links to it. Yeah.
David, I was spent a couple of days in Little Rock recently, and they have their river trail system they've done along the Arkansas River, and I think it's 20 miles or something of it, but it's really impressive, and it's very well used. I mean, of course, they've got developments right along the river, and they've got a lot of development along there, but there's just any number of sections. Some of it's fairly wilderness, some of it's fairly highly developed along there with hotels and plazas and restaurants along the trail, but it's quite impressive what they've done down there.
Right, and this is just one of the pieces that we continue to try and add on to the Trails Master Plan. I've been told by users and bicycle enthusiasts that this one trail has changed the whole face of trail and bicycling in the city, so we're very happy with how it's turned out.
Any questions for David about any of his report? Well, that brings us to item 13, comments by members of the board. I want to start by asking Councilman Greenwell if he has any words of wisdom for us here as we come to the end of another calendar year, making progress.
Yes, I think that's the most important thing, is that all the projects are going forward, and I think everybody, the general public's perception is very favorable about what's happening with our MAPS program. So thank everybody involved. Thank you for all of your work, and I think it's being very well received. Like a lot of things, people become anxious at times, but we're getting there. And I will say this, especially with the Fairgrounds Expo Center, unless you see it in person, it's hard to imagine how big that is. That's a very big structure. So it'll be great once it's open.
It will. Whitewater is pretty big, too.
Yeah.
Pretty big. All right, anybody else on the advisory board? Any other comments? Staff? Anyone, any citizen here that wants to make a comment today? Well, I'd like to close with this then. As we come to the end of each year, I kind of like to reflect on the fact that we're now it was December of 2009 that the voters approved the MAPS 3 projects. And it was the following spring when the City Council created the Citizens Advisory Board to provide oversight and citizen involvement. And it was also in the spring that we started collecting the sales tax. And we were to collect it for, what was it, David, 7 years and 7 months? 9 months? 7 years and 9 months. And each month as we've looked at this, we see reports that sales tax collections generally are down this fiscal year, and particularly in recent months. But the sales tax collections for the MAPS 3 project are still above projections that were projected at the original time. And we have, give or take, a few months, maybe 18 months left to collect the tax, but as you saw the numbers, we're nearing having collected $600 million in taxes. And so some of the risks that were involved in this pay-as-you-go project, we're already past a good number of those risks. And so I close this year thanking each one of you. I think that there are many great things about the MAPS projects from 1 to 3, but one of them has always been the willingness of citizens to be volunteers to provide oversight to all of these projects and to ensure the people who voted to have this done, that there was citizen involvement. And so I want to personally thank each one of you for making that happen. And there are 75 others that work on the subcommittees that perhaps will be watching this, that I want to express our appreciation to them. I think the mayor and the city council did a great job of devising a plan that would ensure the citizens of Oklahoma City that they were able to participate and to have a part in the finishing of these projects that I think are transformational for our city. So we close today with my best wishes and wish for a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And let's get geared up for a big 2016. We've got a lot of stuff to do. Is there anything else? Shall we adjourn? It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.